Look at this. Apparently, he said some stuff about Taiwan, and I'm curious.
AP review. UN chief warns China and US to avoid Cold War. Too late, brothers and sisters. It's already happening.
I mean, it's definitely leading up to it. I would say it's sliding into it. The question of how intense is the Cold War going to be? I mean, I would say I would say maybe it's not a Cold War. Maybe at the moment more of like a chill war. I don't think it's at all going to be to the intensity or level of the Cold War of old. I think it's going to be more like maybe like a war in the refrigerator instead of the freezer, you know?
They've threatened Taiwan many times, so don't act like their military is a peacekeeping force. I never said that. I don't think that militaries are peacekeeping forces, you fucking idiot. No, this is hegemon shit, okay? This is just what global hegemonic powers do, okay? And also, oh man, you mean to tell me that fucking China is escalating tensions against Taiwan? Dude, the only reason why you're talking about fucking Taiwan right now is literally because we have been escalating tensions against China by beefing up Taiwan, giving Taiwan, what is it, like $1.8 billion worth of arms? Like, what is this, dude? Yo.
Based.
I'm gonna keep it at 100. Okay, I'm gonna keep it real. Why don't we do this for Hawaii? Like, what would happen if China was just like, you know what? We're just gonna give Hawaii $1.8 billion worth of fucking drones so that the indigenous population there can fucking defend itself.
Okay, well, number one, there would need to be, the context would be very different. Okay, so first let me say, so if, okay. The Taiwan Relations Act, made while we were trying to normalize relations with China, clearly states, and this is from like 1974, that we are supposed to supply Taiwan, and this was the compromise we came to. That China said, while they didn't like it, they still went forward with normalization, even though we were doing this, right? And we're not even giving them the most up-to-date equipment, right? We give them like, we give them equipment that's like augmented to be pretty updated, but we don't even give them the most updated equipment. But the Taiwan Relations Act clearly states that we are supposed to supply Taiwan to its defensive like capability. I forget the exact wording, but the point of the Taiwan Relations Act when it comes to giving them arms is basically we're supposed to supply them arms according to their needs, to their strategic needs and their own self-defense. And it was crafted in that specific way so that we would not adapt it to give them less military support just due to either, like, for example, China, it would displease Beijing, right? And it was crafted specifically in that way so that we would consistently be giving Taiwan what they need to defend themselves, which I think is good because it sets a red line when it comes to the fact that they are not going to be able to invade Taiwan without a massive disincentive when it comes to casualties and losses. And so you can scoff at the idea of giving Taiwan military support, but they do need military support. They are standing across from the most powerful, one of the most powerful militaries in the world as a tiny island nation, isolated from the global stage because China has strong-armed them. The least we can do is be the one nation that really supports them and give them a means to defend themselves, which was clearly outlined since the 1970s. And China's been aware of our intention to do this since the 1970s. So I don't see what the problem would be with us supplying them. They're going to need those arms. And the thing is, China is continually increasing their military budget. They're continually building up their naval forces. They're embarking upon and violating Taiwanese airspace more and more frequently. It would only be natural that if the Taiwan Relations Act basically says that we're supposed to give them the defensive capabilities that is suitable for the situation, that in that situation, they would increase the amount of funding we would be giving them, the amount of weapons we'd be giving them in these arms sales. But let's be clear, the arms sales we're supposed to be giving them are defensive in nature. We're not giving them arms sales that would allow them to do some like amphibious invasion of China. So you would basically need to say that we need to throw the Taiwan Relations Act. I'm trying to remember if that's the correct wording, the correct name of the actual act out. We would need to stop selling them weapons that are defensive in nature. And yes, aircraft can be defensive in nature. And while China continues to ramp up its military spending, Taiwan basically just needs to sit there and just wait for basically China to be so big and so economically powerful that they have no choice but to put their hands up, even though their people want to be their own sovereign entity. They have their own government, their own military, their own currency, their own system. They're a thriving democracy. They've developed their own culture and their own identity. They should be allowed to be an independent nation, and they need arms to stay an independent nation, to disincentivize a Chinese invasion. I don't see what the problem is. China was going to increase military spending whether we sent arms to Taiwan or not.
Okay? Which would be a little bit more justifiable than what the fuck we're doing here with respect to Taiwan.
Wait, what do you mean? Wait, go back.
Like, what would happen if China was just like, you know what? We're just going to give Hawaii $1.8 billion worth of fucking drones so that the indigenous population there can fucking defend itself. Okay? Which would be a little bit more justifiable than what the fuck we're doing here with respect to Taiwan.
Wait, how would that be more justifiable? Number one, the population of Hawaii does not want to secede from the Union. There is a group of radical individuals in the indigenous community that want to secede from the Union, but that's not the majority of the people in Hawaii. The majority of the people in Taiwan want to be their own sovereign entity. They've established their own sovereign government, their own sovereign system. And they have an indigenous community as well, which I don't think views the Chinese government very favorably. So how would that be better?
Okay? Let alone fucking Cuba. America's arms, America giving arms to Taiwan is purposeful aggression. This is
They're defensive weapons.
Start of the Cold War.
What do you mean? They will use those Okay. China is increasing the military spending. What you are saying is that Taiwan needs to sit there as China stands across from the aisle saying, we're going to invade you, and loading a gun with bullets, and Taiwan just stands there twiddling its thumb with no international backers. If we abandon Taiwan, they're going to get invaded. I'm sorry. What?
Yeah, start arming Haiti. Start arming Cuba. Start arming fucking... Okay, Hawaii isn't claiming sovereignty. Well, okay, Puerto Rico. Sorry.
Puerto Rico also isn't claiming sovereignty. There's a movement of Puerto Ricans that want it to be its own country. Oh, my...
I should have said Puerto Rico instead of Hawaii. Okay, give Puerto Rico $1.8 billion in potential arms sales.
And you know what? Here's a great example. Let's say we were consistently and constantly talking about, and obviously the situation isn't comparable, but he wants to do this, the invasion of, let's say, Mexico. Because Mexico has territory that did once belong to the United States that we sold back to them after the Mexican-American War. And we were going to take that land. And we were like, we want that land and we're going to take it. And we increase our military spending. We say we're going to do it. We violate Mexican airspace. We tell them we are going to eventually take you over, either peacefully or non-peacefully. And we tell the world this. Mexico would be in full right to turn to the international community for arms sales. And countries would be in their full right to sell them arms.
What's up? What, you gonna fucking tell me that, like, America doesn't have fucking territorial land that it claims to have sovereignty over, that wants autonomy? What are you, fucking crazy?
Okay. And so is your stance, fuck those people? Because if your stance is we should stop supporting Taiwan, then to be consistent, you'd also have to say screw those people as well. And let me just be clear, like, there is no comparison that I can think of that would actually be 1-to-1 or anywhere close to 1-to-1 when it comes to Taiwan. You can, like, kind of guess around, but the Taiwanese situation is so complex that the only other thing I could kind of think of is maybe South Korea that's somewhat comparable. But again, that's not even American territory. Let me just make sure. Okay. Let me double check. American. I want to make sure. I want to see if maybe we drop the defensive arms sales. Defensive arms sales to Taiwan. I want to see if it's still defensive. Because I remember that the Taiwan Relations Act specifically said they had to be defensive in nature, right? Defense. 100 coastal defense systems. I'm looking at the article. 1 second. Taiwan Relations Act. Is there any, like, Wikipedia? There he is. Reaction and reaffirmation. The PRC aligned itself. Da-da-da. Look, I can't, 1 second, find anything on it. But let me just be, like, clear. Okay, here it is. The act requires the United States to have a policy to provide Taiwan with arms of a defensive character and to maintain the capacity of the United States to resist any resort to force or coercion. Da-da-da. As a lawyer from America, Taiwan has merited our strong support, including free trade agreement and the timely sale of defensive arms, including technology to build diesel submarines. Okay, so it's a defensive nature, which is still, like, totally fair.
American Samoa, Guam, you are literally...
Wait, why would Mexico turn to Russia for arms in a case of fear of invasion if they could send diplomats and de-escalate the situation? Oh, that's great. Wonderful idea. Okay, let's do this. Let's do this roleplay scenario. Hello, China. I'm Taiwan. We would like to be our own independent country. If you declare that, we will immediately invade you. Where do you go from there? What's your next move? I'm not saying there isn't negotiations to be had on Taiwan, but to say that leverage and military leverage should not be used in the situation to maintain a status quo until a political solution can be found is ridiculous. Because if we allow China to militarize and Taiwan to not increase its defensive capabilities in comparison, and do not give them reinsurances or put structures in place to defend them, then we could have a South Korea 1950 situation with the Dean Acheson speech, where basically Dean Acheson's speech, who was a Secretary of State of the Truman administration, did not include South Korea and Taiwan, which actually we could get into a whole hubbub about that, in his speech about our defensive sphere in Asia. And that was part of the motivating factors that led to the Kim family invading into the South and Stalin and Mao looking towards the situation and be like, okay, guess it's not going to be a big issue. We need to make it as clear as possible that if China invades Taiwan, that will come with many problems, whether it be high casualties for their military, economic consequences, etc., etc. Now, we don't need to break the status quo and say, let's all now universally declare Taiwan's independent and send nuclear vessels. No. But you can, best case, most diplomatic scenario, try to maintain the status quo until a diplomatic solution can be found. And arms sales are an important part of that, because without the United States, Taiwan has no large-scale international backers that could be selling these types of arms to them. And the Taiwan Relations Act is already in law.
Really talking out of your ass right now? Yeah, totally, dude. And let me tell you something. And this ass is spitting, brother. That's right.
Is he just banning them?
This ass is spitting, okay? Truths. This ass is spitting only truths. I'm diarrheaing truths right now out of my fucking...
And I don't even hate Hasan, but dude, this is like some... This is like basically this feels like guns scary, right? This just feels like, well, we sold them weapons, so we escalated the situation. So if we just stop selling them weapons, then the Chinese would stop escalating. China is growing as a military power, as an economic power. And with that growing of strength, they are going to look towards their long-term goals and try to achieve them more, whether they be economic, trade, or foreign policy. And one of their long-term goals is Taiwan being a part of China. But the Taiwanese don't want that. And so we need to do what we can to give the Taiwanese leverage in any negotiations and in their own defense. And the weapons, again, being sold to them are of a defensive character. We're not sending them nuclear warheads that would obliterate China.
My doo-doo ass. Anyway. Yeah, this ass only fucking diarrhea's truths, baby.
God.
Okay, so arms deal is one thing. Pooh Bear, CCP literally talking about reunification with Taiwan by 2049 is the reality. Thus, your take is half-baked at best.
True.
My point of view on fucking China and Taiwan.
Okay, I'm waiting for the imperialism. I'm waiting for the word to be taken out like the skeleton key to foreign policy.
And America is this. I can't stop China from doing anything, but what I can do is at least be like, at least on paper or in theory, have some kind of fucking sway over American foreign policy, okay?
What? What did he say?
My point of view on fucking China and Taiwan and America is this. I can't stop China from doing anything, but what I can do is at least be like, at least...
Well, our government can do its best to stop them from invading Taiwan, though.
On paper or in theory, have some kind of fucking sway over American foreign policy, okay?
Yeah, so you should support this. You should support the sale. This is a vital part of our relationship with Taiwan. Without this support, their military would be not at all. I mean, think about the amount of money they are increasing. And now you can say, well, look at it in comparison to American money. Okay, but we're not talking about the American military. We're talking about the Taiwanese military. Let's compare Chinese military spending, right? Let's see if we can find anything on this, right? Okay. They spend around 261 billion. This, by the way, increases every year, okay? Now let's look up Taiwan. They're planning boosts. Look at that, $9 billion boost. Wow, that's a big news story. $9 billion wouldn't even make a headline if it was the Chinese military. Let's look at their total military spending. Wait, this says 2.26 trillion NT. Oh, God, that's their currency. I can't. Uh, can we get it in American dollars so I can understand that? I think it's 1.7% of China's total GDP. Oh, wow. That's great. 1 second. Where is it? God, can somebody roll up? Used to 11. So that's like, what, 10 billion? I can't. God, can we just get some? Okay. 10-year budget aimed at breaking 400. Is there anything I can? There you go. Thank you. Jesus Christ. Okay. Wait, no. God damn it. I thought you were going to send me the thing. 11.5 billion. And they're planning a 9 trillion. Okay. So let's just say 11 billion to 20 billion is what we're looking at. That's the range. Okay? In comparison to 260 billion. Do we see the difference here when we talk about military spending? And why China feels so bold and it's banging up its chest when it's talking about Taiwan? And when you compare the Chinese economy to the Taiwanese economy in its size and where they're expected to go, the Taiwanese economy is going to grow. It is not going to grow anywhere near the Chinese economy. And they spend, as somebody brought up in chat, 1.7 of their GDP on military. That number is only going to get bigger. And as that number continues to get bigger, we need to do our best to support Taiwan with defensive arms sales. I don't see the problem. Anyway, what I'm trying to just highlight here is the military technology Taiwan and China has access to is very different. The access of funds is very different. Manpower is very different. And Taiwan needs all the help it can get. And 1.8 billion in the grand scheme of things, perfectly fine by me. It is not it's not like an extra special escalation. It did not cause an international uproar.
Why do internet warmongers use dust so much? You don't sound smart, you sound silly. Yeah. With some foreign policy always feels dank, man. Yo, totally, dude. Yeah, my foreign policy is always dumb because I am not from America, okay? I'm not like you. I was born here. I'm a fucking anchor baby. But I offer you, okay, in a very palatable way, in a format that you're, you know, ripe for fucking consuming, in a white, memeing, like, younger, cis male speaker, I'm giving you the perspective that you will never hear ever again. The perspective of someone who wasn't born into American exceptionalism, who did not grow up with American imperialism.
And let me just say, there's people with wrong opinions all around the world. You do not need to be an American to have a wrong opinion, and you have a very backwards opinion on this, man.
American exceptionalism. And that's what the fucking unique part about this is. And no matter how liberal you are, no matter how progressive you are, you will never be able to see this because it's been fucking lobotomized. It's been hammered into the back of your fucking minds since the day you were born. Since the day you started reciting the Pledge of Allegiance, that like America.
Dude, you do not need to be an American exceptionalist to believe that a people who wish to rule themselves should have that ability. And a people who want to be a democracy should have that ability. China has been strong-arming them on the international stage. $1.8 billion. In comparison to $260 billion. And they increase it every single year. Taiwan needs all the help it can get.
America is good, and we're a force for good. And yeah, I think we should be giving weapons to Taiwan. And I think we should be fucking, you know, giving nuclear.
Okay, there you go. You think we should?
Submarines to Australia. And I think we should be doing Cold War shit. That's where it leads.
Oh, no. You were memeing. You said something smart as a joke.
Back of your fucking minds since the day
we should. So what he's saying is we shouldn't give arms to Taiwan, which has been American policy since 1974. And that's not even mentioning the Civil War. We should throw out the Taiwanese Relations Act and give the Chinese government a green light for an invasion. Green light, a massive war. A lot of people think that if America was just not involved, that it'd just be more peaceful. Taiwan is not that example. If we were not involved in Taiwan, China would take it by force. That is a fact. If they, of course, did not force them to submit through economic strong-arming. The Taiwanese people want to rule themselves, and I'm perfectly fine using our military for a good thing for once. Even if that's not the intention of everybody in our government. I'm perfectly fine doing that.
The day you were born, since the day you started saying reciting the Pledge of Allegiance, that like America is good and we're a force for good. And yeah, I think we should be giving weapons to Taiwan. And I think we should be fucking, giving nuclear submarines to Australia. And I think we should be doing Cold War shit.
Nobody wants to be doing Cold War shit. But if China decides it wants to invade Taiwan, we should be on the other side of that equation saying no. Hasan, who else? Who else? Unironically, who else would stand there? China has strong-armed everyone, even us, into breaking formal ties with them. We just have the American Institute in Taiwan. That's what we have. That's what we have. We don't even have a formal embassy in the country anymore. We have a private institute that has a man in there basically functioning as an ambassador. And we did this as a kind of rose to China to formalize that. We're like, hey, we will do whatever you need us to do internationally to like recognize you and stuff. We're not going to completely abandon Taiwan, even though multiple administrations almost did that. And it was only due to Congress and American support and among the populace for Taiwan on multiple occasions that it wasn't completely dropped, because it was extremely unpopular during the Truman administration, just completely abandoned them. And the Taiwan Relations Act, of course. Thank God Carter did not. Well, it's not like even if Carter vetoed the Taiwan Relations Act, it had a veto-proof majority, so it would have gone through anyway.
That's where it leads. It leads to the Cold War. Okay? We've already done this.
Dude, we can't just be passive as they fuck people, okay? Unless you're saying that we should basically say Taiwan should just get invaded, that's fine, and you're willing to accept that, which if you are, we have totally different moral compasses. If you're willing to accept that, that's one thing, but I'm not, and I hope you're not. And if they don't want to be invaded, they're going to need means to disincentivize an invasion, and defensive weapons are part of that. If it was easy for China to invade Taiwan, they would do it. Point blank, period. It needs to be international repercussions, economic problems, and a difficulty of actually invading the country. Which, how do you make it difficult to invade a country? Give them good weapons. Allow them to dig in. Give them support. Great example. When Trump pulled out of northeastern Syria, that actually expanded the Syrian civil war because Turkey invaded northeastern Syria. That was a situation where we decreased our support, our military support, but that actually caused more people dying, more violence, and a resurgence of ISIS activity in the region. Because it's not as simple as if we just leave or we just go hands off, then everything's going to be peachy keen.
We've already done this against the USSR, and now we're going to do this against China.
Would you die for Taiwan? Unironically, I don't, it's hard for me to say I would die for anything, but if there's any conflict that you could actually get me to go to a recruitment station, say sign me up, it is the defense of Taiwan. You wouldn't have been able to get me to do it for Iraq. You can get me to do it for Taiwan, 100%. Those are people who just want to be able to rule themselves and go by a different form of government that isn't as authoritarian. 100%. That is like the one thing you could actually get me to do. The one conflict I would actually sign up for.
And you can say that, like, I'm actually the realpolitik, reasonable individual in the room. And that's why I think, like, giving weapons to Taiwan is the smart thing to do. Or, you know, making...
You don't need to be realpolitik. You can just understand that if they don't have weapons to defend themselves, then they're screwed. You don't even need to be like a complicated. You don't even need to. You know, I'm going through like a realist viewpoint. Oh, I'm an international. I'm a liberal internationalist. Oh well, I am of the realpolitik school. You don't need to do any of that. It's pretty simple. If you don't have weapons to defend yourself, you can't defend yourself. Nelson, thank you so much for the tier 1.
Nuclear submarines with conventional weapons, of course, but still nuclear submarines in Australia is the right thing to do. And, you know, igniting war in the Indo-Pacific.
Did giving Taiwan defensive weapons is not going to ignite war. The things that would ignite war is not just a basic continuation of 1974 Taiwan Relations Act. That is not going to ignite war. You want to know what it didn't do? Ignite war. It happened. War was not ignited. In fact, that disincentivizes an invasion because then they're going to look at the casualty numbers that could come with an invasion or the likelihood of failure. And the higher the casualties numbers are, and the more likely it is that the Chinese government will fail, the less likely they are to choose a physical invasion as a solution to the issue.
Is the right thing to do for America's hegemonic power, but it's just still imperialism.
Okay. And?
This comes across incredibly unempathetic to the people of Taiwan. They've had a culture of over 200 plus years of being separate from China and 100 years desire for permanent sovereignty. Your oh well tier take is a bit disappointing. Listen, brother.
This is really sympathetic. This is the most sympathetic way you could talk to Taiwan. That's Hasan here.
I don't know if you're actually Taiwanese. I fucking doubt it, though. I assume you are American.
Dude, I would love to get some Taiwanese people in a room with Hasan for him to talk about this. And just, oh my God, dude. Does he think that the Taiwanese think that the Taiwanese do not want to be, they need defensive weapons. Tsai Ing-wen was reelected. They voted for the person who was going to do this. She won twice.
But America giving Taiwan $1.8 billion in potential arms is not going to fucking save Taiwan. America is not your fucking...
It unironically actually can. It's a part of a multi-tier strategy. It's not the only thing. American... the kind of fog around the idea of whether America's going to jump in could be part of it. Their increased defensive capabilities could be part of it. Harm to China's reputation internationally could be part of it. Economic penalties could be part of it. Alliances in the region could be part of it. It needs to be part of a multi-tier strategy. It is not as simple as we give them gun and then no war happens. But want to know what? If the Taiwanese don't have weapons, then the Chinese are 100% going to invade.
Savior, okay? America doesn't even care about...
Isn't the 1.8 relatively insignificant amount compared to Chinese ridiculous arsenal? One second. Isn't the 1.8 billion relatively insignificant compared to the Chinese arsenal? 100%. Yeah, no, this is not going to ignite a war. 100% no.
American dollars in potential arms is not going to fucking save Taiwan. America is not your fucking savior, okay?
Unironically, if that's the case in this instance, Hasan, and you don't need to believe that America's in it for good reasons or not. I mean, it's complicated, the reasons why we support Taiwan. There were certain even periods of time, like under the Truman administration, where they thought it was actually politically harmful not politically, but strategically harmful to continue to kind of place our bets on the KMT. But we continue to do it because it would have been very unpopular not to send them aid. There was multiple periods in history. And the reason our support for Taiwan has continued for so long is that there are strategic interests on one hand, and the American population has generally been supportive of the Taiwanese people. It's complicated exactly why we have supported Taiwan for so long.
America doesn't even care about Americans, dumbass. Why do you think that they would give a fuck about Taiwan? Are you fucking stupid?
It's complicated, man. I mean, the Truman administration didn't want to really send them aid, and they thought that the KMT was too corrupt to continue. But they did it anyway because Congress really wanted to do it because they didn't want to backstab their allies from basically fighting Japan. Then, of course, you have the Ford administration, which was somewhat similar. Then you go to Nixon, and Nixon, I think after Ford, it was Nixon, right? After Ford, I believe it was Nixon. Right? No. Was it? No, it was Eisenhower. No, I'm getting my presidents mixed up. But if you go from president to president to president, the reasons why we continue to support Taiwan, yeah, it's the other way around, varied. Some supported it for strategic reasons. Others supported it because it was popular to support Taiwan. Others supported it for leverage reasons. But at the end of the day, all of that culminated in us supporting them generally throughout the years, and until it came to the UN and us wanting to normalize with China under the Nixon administration, sliding into administrations past that. So to say that like any one reason why we supported Taiwan, whether it's like strategic interests or because we love democracy, saying any one reason would be incorrect. You need to give a culmination of reasons, because it was not simply that the commander-in-chief dictated Taiwanese policy, because Congress stepped in multiple times, like with the Taiwan's Relations Act, to push legislation to make sure we stayed supportive of Taiwan. So the reasons why we supported Taiwan is strategic interests. It's popular among the American populace to support it because of their ties, because of our ties as allies during the World War II against Imperial Japan, ties during the Cold War, and now a lot of it has to do with the fact that they're a democracy. So it's multiple reasons.
Hello. American government doesn't even give a fuck about the American citizens that are dying in its doorstep, okay?
Walk and chew bubblegum. You can do both things at the same time.
Hey, at the doorstep of the fucking Capitol. You really think that they're doing this out of the kindness of their fucking hearts, you idiot? They're doing this so we can go back into fucking never-ending Cold War.
We've been doing this since the last Cold War. The Taiwan's Relations Act was enacted in response to the normalization process with China. So Congress told the presidencies of Carter and Nixon and all of them that, hey, look, we can normalize with China if you want to, really, because we wanted to take advantage of the Sino-Soviet split. But we're not abandoning them. So this is a policy that's continued forever. So why would this now be a reason to go into a second Cold War when we've been doing it since the 70s?
More weapons can be sold. More ways to exert regional authority all around the world, specifically in Africa. A way to disrupt the One Belt, One Road initiative. That's what this is for, okay?
It's for multiple reasons, Hasan. You're simplifying it.
We will never be able to allow any other country that we have declared a foreign adversary to engage in.
And let's say that it was all just imperialism and evil, and we were doing it because we're just all demons and all Americans suck. Let's say that was the reason, right? And legitimately, so what? If the outcome is beneficial because Taiwan gets to stay sovereign in its own nation, then so what? Let's say we all are just American imperialist infidel demons, and the only reason we're doing this is because we hate babies. So what? Legitimately, so what? It creates a situation where the Taiwanese get to have their own sovereign government like they want. They get to be their own people and run the government the way they want to. They get the ability to rule themselves. That's all they want. So what? Let's say everything you said was right and all nuance must be removed. So what? Then what? Legitimately. Then what?
In any sort of diplomatic action.
Let's say, here's a great example. Let's say that there was a country in the world that was supporting the Black Lives Matter movement, saying Black Lives Matter is good, it's great, it's wonderful. That's all they did. They just said Black Lives Matter is good, great, wonderful, and we welcome some of their people over here. Would that mean we should not support Black Lives Matter? Even if their motives isn't a love for black people, but say they want to destroy America or whatever they think they're going to do, that's negative. Or their incentive is profit. For example, corporations. Many corporations have benefited from LGBTQ plus friendly marketing or for marketing to Black Lives Matter. That could have been helpful. Should we now say, screw that, fuck that help, let's make it more difficult for ourselves? Even if it was profit incentive, there's been many politicians who would vote in favor of police brutality legislation to try to combat it, who probably aren't doing it out of the kindness of their heart, but are doing it to get reelected. Should we reject that help and not take advantage of it? So even if you're right and we're just doing it for nefarious reasons, the outcome is still positive. A people being able to rule themselves.
Because that is a threat to our global power. Actual worst take? What?
This is actually the worst take I've seen from Hasan in a long time.
And the point is, if China gave $1.8 billion worth of fucking arms to Puerto Rico, to those who want autonomy from the United States, who don't want statehood, but actually want like autonomy, full-blown autonomy.
It isn't comparable. You need to do it with Cuba.
From the United States, you would be losing your fucking...
And if we were actively declaring every day, we're gonna invade Cuba, we're gonna invade Cuba, we're gonna invade Cuba, then go ahead. Yes, that makes sense.
In mind, dude, the same hogs that say stuff like, no, this is actually a force for good, would literally be like, no, we have to literally murder China. We have to murder Chinese people. We have to fucking hunt them in the streets. That's what you would be saying.
Wow. Very nuanced.
Yeah, defending American imperialism when it's anti-China. Make no mistake, like, I think China is also doing a bunch of fucked up shit.
So what do you think we should do about Taiwan, Hasan? I want to hear Hasan's Taiwan policy.
Americans have not come home to roost for China yet with respect to its expansion in Africa, with respect to its own personal interest in doing some kind of like neo-colonialism. But so far, those nations literally prefer allegiances with China because they have a history of getting fucked by the West. Okay?
Next year, let's do $3 billion.
Every leftist who claims to hate China as much as America ends up fear-mongering against China nonstop while defending American imperialism. I hope you're not talking about me, because I get fucking called like a Chinese propagandist regularly for taking an approach that is like nearly identical.
You're not being a Chinese propagandist. You're just saying everything that would be beneficial to Xi Jinping in this scenario. Like, we should drop all support for Taiwan, basically, and just say, like, hang him. I mean, I want to hear, like, honestly, if he's proposing we should change our policy on Taiwan, what should we change it to? Legitimately, what should we change it to?
Between America and China.
See, now he said China's neocolonialism, and you go through that. Oh, you mean the voluntary agreements? Dude. Ugh.
Oh, I mean, Puerto Ricans kicked the Navy out that one time. Yeah, because the government in Puerto Rico doesn't want the separatists to be funded because that would cause a civil war. Arming Taiwan is just beefing up their military. Wait, what do you mean? That's the same fucking point, though.
It isn't the same thing. It isn't the same thing. Arming separatists in Puerto Rico would start a civil war. The civil war between China and Taiwan is effectively over unless China invades, right? So we need to make sure there is disincentives from them invading. Ugh. Not to mention, not all Puerto Ricans want to be their own country. The vast majority of Taiwanese people not only want to be their own country, want to be a democracy, but many of them have established their own separate culture from mainland Taiwan. Not to mention the history of their indigenous community. And, man, I'm going to get stun locked.
Oh. And it would be wrong. It would be bad. If China was like giving fucking arms to Puerto Rico, I wouldn't be an advocate for it. Look, I believe that the people of
Because it's a different situation.
Puerto Rico should have their own voice.
Dude,
I personally think that they would benefit more from statehood, given the amount of debt that they have from vulture capitalists, from predatory fucking practices that the American government has engaged in thus far. I think they would benefit more from statehood, but hey, that's not up to me, okay? That's up to the people of fucking Puerto Rico. It'll never get statehood regardless.
Oh, it's up to the people of Puerto Rico? Okay. The people of Taiwan have elected Tsai Ing-wen to make these military agreements with the United States, to make these trade deals with the United States so they could beef up the military. What's the problem?
Because white supremacist Americans do not want more say from what they assume are brown people.
But did I say mainland Taiwan? Hey, yeah, I gave up the plan.
Don't want any more like additional political power. That never happens. That only happens if you like, you know, give concessions to some fucking white state. Like, yeah, we're gonna cut Wyoming into two. We're gonna make Wyoming 1 and Wyoming 2. We're gonna do Wyoming East and Wyoming West. Okay. Only then can you have Puerto Rico. You know what I mean? Like, that's the only time where we like ever allow statehood for like Washington D.C. I mean, or statehood for Puerto Rico would be if we're literally like, you know what? We need to split the Dakotas even further, brother. I think what we need to do now is split it in 4.
Okay, is this it? Does he talk about Taiwan at all anymore?
Of course, make sure that they're all red, though, you know? Like,
is he done? Please be done.
as a German Ethiopian, I have to say is
okay, that's it. This is like all I can say is like this is probably one of the worst takes I've seen from Hasan. Like Taiwan has a right to beef up the military capabilities. I have no reason. I have no clue. And they should. They need to.